Steven, how are you?
Okay, good to meet you. How are you?
Lovely. Nice to meet you. I'm healthy, so that's a good start to
Okay.
2026.
Okay.
So, where in the world are you today?
I am in frigid Brooklyn, New York. Where are you?
Chic. I'm in New York as well, Manhattan.
Okay.
Woohoo!
Okay, I see the New Yorker behind you.
Yeah, representing MMA Art Studio right now. I love your backdrop. I have to get as chic as you. It's so beautiful. If you're not on the video, pop over to the video on the YouTube. Let's dive right into it. What are those paintings behind you, by the way?
Oh gosh. One is a print which represents the myth Leda and the Swan, and the other one is uh, a print from an artist named Dorothy Robinson, who's an old friend.
Okay, very nice. Well, we're both experiencing the wonderful sun. We say it's very sunny.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
I face south, so I'm getting blasted.
Tell us about the long way home. Where do you want to start? Because I mean, we only have so much time, and it's a lot.
Uh, I can describe the film and why I brought it back 36 years after it got released. The,
Please.
the Long Way Home is about one of the greatest singer-songwriters of the last 50 years that most Americans don't know about, Boris Grebenshchikov, who is Russian and is kind of the Bob Dylan of Russian rock and roll, the artist who transformed it, who brought um, great poetry and different musical strains into it, reggae, Irish music, etc. He was incredibly eclectic and innovative and was a great, great hero as an underground artist in Russia. And in 1988, he got the opportunity to make an album in the West. And that was a big deal at the time because the Soviet Union had been our enemy for many years. And, slowly there was this thawing of relations and the opportunity for artists to finally express themselves more openly. It was a policy called Glasnost that began in 1985 under Gorbachev. A couple of American managers, uh, Kenny Schaefer and Marina Alby, got Boris a deal to make an album for CBS Records, which was a major label. It later became Sony, but it was the label of Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Miles Davis, etc. So here was Boris, who had never left the Soviet Union, but had studied and absorbed rock and roll and folk music long distance for years. Um, Here he had this extraordinary opportunity to make an album. And I wanted to make a film about his journey. What would happen to him when he parachuted into this Western rock and roll world that he had never experienced? He had never worked in a professional studio. They didn't have them in Russia, not for underground artists, especially. He had never worked with a producer. This was all new to him. Plus, he was required to write songs in English, and he was fluent in English. He's brilliant, drop dead handsome, smart, resilient, funny, but it was quite a challenge for him. So the film is about his experience leaving home, coming to the West, making an album recorded, produced by Dave Stewart of Eurythmics, and what happens to him in the process, and when he brings that album back home to his hometown audience in Leningrad, who have worshipped him, and here he is performing a bunch of new songs in English that they don't necessarily understand. So that concert that he does with Dave Stewart of Eurythmics is the climax of the original film. And then we have an epilogue, which brings us forward in time 36, 37 years to what happened to Boris after this album was released. How did it change his life? And what is he doing now?
Exactly, exactly. And the people you mentioned earlier, Marina and the other gentleman who got the,
Kenny,
pardon?
Kenny,
Who got him the album deal with CBS, they also got him the visa to be able to come over to the West, because
yes,
it was very rare that that could happen for an artist. But it was loosely coming out of the Soviet era time. So from a lot of the people tuning in weren't born or around during that time, of the Soviet era. So maybe you want to shed some light on that positioning of the Soviet era, and then it loosening up for him to be able to come to the West, and how profound that was,
yes.
for him as a human, because he was in his 30s. So I mean, he wasn't like a little boy wondering. He's kind of been around. He knew what was going on with the choices he was making with the people that he met. So maybe you want to share how they met, or that neurological connection, and how it was for him to come over during that time.
Well, uh, I think it was originally Kenny's idea. Kenny had been involved in the rock and roll world as a publicist. He was an inventor. He invented the wireless electric guitar. He's a really fascinating character, and he was fascinated with the Soviet Union, and he had figured out a way to put a satellite dish on his roof where he could track transmissions of Soviet TV. So he was watching he was watching Soviet TV in New York City, probably the only person. Anyway, so Kenny and his partner Marina uh, had this idea of finding a, a, a Russian artist who could record in the West. And the underlying intention was to help break through some of these barriers
Mm,
that we had at the time.
yeah.
Russia was our enemy. Communism had been our enemy for many, many years. This was really ingrained in Americans of my generation, but things were starting to change. So this was an incredible opportunity for Boris, and uh, and quite a burden as well. I mean, he could have looked at it as a burden, but I don't think he did. And that speaks to who he is as a person and an artist. On one of the first days he was here, I was talking to him, and he said to me, I'm the only person who has ever been sent on a mission by the Soviet Union where the mission is to have as much fun as I possibly can.
Hmm.
So he looked at it as fun,
Yeah.
but and not many uh, artists would have. But at the same time, he had this responsibility. He had to deliver an album to one of the biggest record labels in the world. And as you see in the film, as it goes on, there was a lot of pressure from the label, from his managers, from Dave Stewart and the recording engineer, wanting to know what is it that you want? How help us translate your songs. I'm not talking about translate from Russian to English. I'm talking about, with all these choices that you have in a modern studio. He had never had any of those choices about instrumentation and synthesizers and electronics and, loops and sampling and all this stuff. This was all new to him. And he had to not only write a series of songs in English, but make all these artistic decisions about how they were going to sound. So it was, he's a remarkable person and an incredible artist. And I hope one of the things people take away from the long way home is just that. And they get an opportunity to see all these years later that Boris has kept the faith. He continues to be a prolific and inspiring artist, despite the fact that he's had to leave his home, and this time not because of choice, not because he's the beneficiary of government policy, but because he is, in some ways, the victim of government policy. So things have kind of come full circle, but in an unexpected way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I would dive even more deeper, but I just definitely want to shine some light on you, your partner, and Michael, the director. So l- what was it originally shot on, and then how did you update it to preserve what he shot the film on?
Well, Michael wanted to shoot on 16 millimeter. He wanted to shoot on film, and I'm glad we did because otherwise we wouldn't have anything to remaster from. So uh, we Michael and I tried to make a sequel film about Boris in 2010, and we couldn't raise the money. And
Hmm.
sadly, Michael passed away in 2021. But he loved this film. I feel it's one of his best documentaries, and it's a great rock and roll movie. So when I finally had a little time in 2023, 24, I started to think about how to remaster. How would we do that technically? I was able to raise money from donors, essentially, people who loved the film and respected Michael Apted's work and liked the work that I had done. So we were able to raise enough money, just enough to get it remastered and to do an epilogue bringing Boris's story into the present. And I did the epilogue with Suzanne Rostock, who's a brilliant artist. She edited The Long Way Home, the original film, and we teamed up to make this beautiful epilogue about Boris in 2025. And it's very interesting. I'm not going to tell the story. I don't want
Of
to spoil it
course.
for
Of
people.
course. And we have to wrap up right now, but I guess would love to conclude with letting everyone know that from my research that um the team is looking for distribution still, correct?
Yes. Yes, we are. We have these premiere screenings at the Museum of Modern Art January 28th and 29th, and we hope the film will be available digitally, on demand sometime this spring. So we're working on it, and uh, go to our website, thelongwayhomefilm.com. We'll have details there when they're available, and we have social channels which are a little bit different. The Long Way Home Doc.
Great. I'll put it in the show notes. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much
Thanks.
for
Thanks,
spending
Katie.
moments with me. I appreciate you.
Great,
Nice
great
to meet
speaking
you.
with you. Okay, pleasure meeting you too.